would like to welcome today Dr. Luis Rodriguez. He works as IFRC lead for Climate Environmental Crises for the Asia-Pacific region. He also works to increase resilience and alleviate poverty in our region. Previously, Dr. Rodriguez was working for CSIRO, Australia's national science agency, as a senior ecological economic expert. And after that, he was working for the Food and Agriculture Organization as a regional climate and environmental policy officer. After that, for the United Nations Development Program in the Climate Futures for the Eastern Caribbean. And finally, now he works for the International Federation of the Red Cross Red Crescent Societies, which is present in more than 190 countries worldwide. It has more than 16 million volunteers, and it is the world's largest humanitarian network. Specifically, IFRC's mission is to improve the situation of the most vulnerable, coordinating emergency international assistance to people affected by natural and man-made disasters, including the forcibly displaced people and also in health crisis. Dr. Rodriguez, welcome to Immunity Group Podcast.
Hello, good afternoon. Nice to meet you again.
It is amazing speaking with you today and mentioning what is the region's most pressing and invisible health crisis, which is the heat-induced health crisis and disasters. Can you please tell me more about that?
So, in Asia Pacific, we have most of the population exposed to heat waves. The recent modeling exercises suggest that over 66% of the global population at risk of suffering for extreme heat will be in Asia Pacific. 2024 has been the year with the highest temperature on record, and this is a polite reminder about the urgency to increase our ambition to tackle climate and environmental crises. We know that heat is a hazard that is impacting mostly the disadvantaged groups who are most exposed. It's also affecting people who have existing health conditions, and again, because of the physiological aspects, the elderly and the youth, in particular the children, are more susceptible to be impacted. As I said, this is one of our strategic priorities. We are working with USAID together, IFRC and USAID. We have now our extreme heat hubs, but we are working together with many other organizations, not only for the design and implementation of early action protocols to prepare and respond to extreme weather conditions, including health, but also for the linkages that climate and the potential hazards that are now associated to health and to climate in Asia Pacific. So we are also concerned about the changes in the distribution of vector-borne diseases. We are having
like what? Can you tell us what they are?
For instance, the models indicate that dengue, 74% of the global incremental cases of dengue will be in this region. This is becoming evident these days. We know where are these new cases, and we are working with our national societies, preparing early action protocols, linking our anticipatory action and forecast-based finance to respond to the health emergencies that are associated to climate health. Moreover, we recognize that there are certain aspects in the way that we manage the environment that make our societies more susceptible for diseases. Zoonosis, for instance, and we are working with our partners on nature-based solutions for disaster risk reduction, but also for the expected benefits on the environment and the expected way that we could also deal with new pandemics.
Wow, what a massive mission, ambition, and task for you. So we spoke earlier in preparation for this interview about diversity of our region. I mean, we have small countries such as Fiji, and we have very large countries such as China. From IFRC's perspective, how is this diversity being handled from a policy level perspective?
Okay, so the first thing is that we have 38 national societies under this regional office. So we recognize the diversity of our national societies, and we also recognize their strengths, and also we recognize their important needs, and we work together preparing unified plans that
So they cooperate with each other at some
yes,
points. Okay.
we have their unified plans within the countries. We have also a regional unified plan that allow us to be coordinated, to be consistent, yeah, and to be coherent in the way that we approach the problems, giving priority to the countries, no, and to the problems that are identified by the countries themselves. So basically, we do not parachute, no, into a country. No, we are always going through the national society and recognizing that our national society have an auxiliary role by the Red Cross or Red Crescent laws in each country. So we coordinate very well with the local and national governments about the type of aid and the type of intervention. It could be technical assistance, it could be capacity building, it could be increasing in coordination, increasing mobilization of efforts for access climate finance, for instance. And we together design and implement the type of intervention that are most cost effective, making use of evidence-based, no, approaches.
So like in Fiji, it could be one approach, and then in India and China, it could be a different approach.
It could be a different approach, no, because we need to understand that there are different needs, no, and also there are different scales of the effort required. And something else is that this is from the technical side, but we need to recognize that we can have also achieve climate outcome through policies and legal frameworks. So from that perspective, we have within my team the disaster law group that are working on that. No, so they work with the national societies to provide governments, local and national governments, with revised plans and strategies and legislative frameworks, yeah, to accelerate climate outcomes and disaster risk reduction outcomes. And also, from our work in the fields, we have new evidence that is also being used for policy design.
So from your perspective, this is a Geneva-based organization with global offices. What are the biggest challenges to implement the plan and strategy which actually you help write? And can you tell us also about that strategy as well?
Yeah, so we have a regional strategy for climate and environmental crisis that is basically responding to our mandate. And what are the priority areas? So we have two big pillars. One pillar is focused on our urgent and ambitious response, no, preparedness and response, to work on climate adaptation, climate mitigation, and community resilience. And the other pillar is focused on the enabling systems. What is enabling systems is where we are talking about the policies, the regulations, the legal frameworks in place, plus also our capacity to make use this strong voice of 191 national societies for advocacy works for system transformation. Which systems transformation? The transformation of agricultural systems to make them more relevant to the new conditions. The same thing for education systems, and increase the resilience of health and energy systems. Why? Because we know that they are important not only from the perspective of mitigation, but also from the perspective of response to emergency.
Because everyone in the media always hears, how many people died, and we see, distribution of tents and food and water, but we don't actually see what happens behind the scenes, especially in that preparedness space.
Yeah, so this is one point. So when we're talking about response, no, our colleagues working on response, they cover from the regional office for Asia Pacific between 38 and 42 emergencies per year. So let's put 42 out of 52 weeks. No, in one. To give you an idea of the magnitude. So this is counting emergencies, no, that are operated through our disaster relief fund or through emergency appeals. Why it is important to underline here that we are the region where most population are exposed to heat and health and overall climate health impacts. No? Because we have population density and we have people exposed, not necessarily associated to poverty levels. We recognize that in this region, no, Asia Pacific, we have many G20 countries. So we have Japan, we have South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and many others. No? So we have capacity in the region. No? So we work together, no, with the idea of reaching two most vulnerable groups. No? According to the implementation of the Sendai framework, we know that there are areas that are less covered, no? Are the least developed countries and are the small island development states. So over the last year and a half, no, we have increased our efforts to serve those countries.
The Pacific in particular.
The Pacific, but we also have small island development states in Asia. And we have our countries that are still at the least developed country status, plus the one that are under protected crisis. No? So we are having serious efforts to reach people in those conditions. No?
So community resilience is actually paramount then, looking at the grassroots level as well as the national strategy. So it's kind of, you have the both levels.
Exactly.
Which can be also in tension sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, and let's put a simple example of that in a particular context. Sri Lanka. No? Sri Lanka, they have been working with us, with the Federation, but also with external donors, no? Over 7 years on community resilience focus on locally led adaptation, that is climate smart agricultural practices and water management. No? The impact has been big. No? They were working in 3 different watersheds in areas that are drought prone, so dry zones. And the income, no? The evidence is that has increased for 75%. There were also some activities related to empowering women and disadvantaged groups that have been already quantified, and they are very positive. So for us, it's not always the problem of not reaching the communities. What is happening now is that when we have been commissioning studies, no, to say what else can we do and what are the limitations for our efforts. No, we are basically having a set of conditions. No? So they said first thing is there is no capacity. No? Capacity building is needed. Yep. There is no evidence that the approach that we are or someone is promoting has real impact. There is no policy frameworks that allow you to operate under this particular point of view that is being promoted, or there is no finance. Mm-hmm. Okay, so from that perspective, as I mentioned, no, we are working in capacity building, we are working in providing technical assistance, we are increasing the capacity of the national societies to do this type of jobs, no? Including the increasing capacity to coordinate these efforts. Why is important to underline this? Because our national societies have a mandate and have also a strong track record supporting governments in disaster risk reduction and even in disaster response. So we know that making use of this auxiliary role, they are a part of response group, national response groups. Uh, but when we are talking about climate and the cross-sectoral impacts, uh, are they in the same capacity to reach now the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Agriculture, no, for food security topics, or going beyond this idea of disaster risk reduction? So we are also supporting them on that. What is important is that we understand that the bottleneck is climate finance to scale up what we know works.
Dr. Rodriguez, my question to you is also from a professional viewpoint. How does a former CSIRO senior scientist come to lead the whole strategy of IFRC for the Asia Pacific region in this space? For those from Australia who might be interested in such international careers, would you give or have some tips and advice?
Okay, so I finished my PhD in ecological economics and I went to work in Africa with an international organization. From Africa, no, I moved to Australia to work at CSIRO at the time when there was a strong international perspective of Australian research and development with the CSIRO outside Alliance for Development, plus some other groups that we were designing and implementing climate and development projects in Southeast Asia and in Africa as part of the collaboration of the Australian government, including the Australian Centre for the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research. So many agencies working in that field. When we had our daughter, we decided to take another movement in our career. I rejoined the UN system. I then was working for some of the United Nations agencies, including FAO and UNDP. And then I joined IFRC, because the magnitude of the challenge and the topic was interesting because it allowed us to work effectively and reach people in the field. And something that is important is because this team, the team that I lead, has also the climate policy persons. So we have now with us a bunch of a group, of highly skilled people, that are working with me, working with us, working with the national societies, and working for the people, on different thematic areas. So this is interesting. So it's a mix of an interesting mandate, strong partners. As I said, we have many of the official development assistance agencies providing support, direct or indirect, to IFRC, but also the technical capacity of our teams. So that make it very attractive.
And Australians can have a go and have a chance.
Well, I will say that many heads of offices, many heads of delegations are Australian citizens.
That's a very promising sign.
Many. I want to say not one or two or three. Many. We know that the Australian government, through the FAT and the Australian Red Cross, are also playing important roles in this region. We are working together in many programs, and something that is not less. We as a federation are also working now in Australia. We have a heat project
in Australia.
In
That's
Australia,
amazing.
in West Sydney, supported by our long-term partner Zurich Foundation. So we are focused on heat waves preparedness and response.
That's
in
wonderful.
West Sydney.
Absolutely
Not
wonderful.
only, again, considering the exposure, we know that is 6-7 degrees no, higher than the Bay, no, but also the socioeconomic profile of the people living there. No?
That
So
is
we
incredible.
recognize that there are needs everywhere, and we are working together on that.
Dr. Rodriguez, this is so inspirational. Thank you very much for your time today. And for those who want to find out more about IFRC's work in the Asia Pacific region and the strategy, please hop onto their website. And you can also look at Dr. Luis Rodriguez's profile online. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure talking to you today.